to their credit, they really saw the vision of what we could bring to the table as more than just a medical practice or a derm practice. They saw the strategy and the sales and marketing platform that we had built that they could replicate for not only their other offices, but for other services, for future locations. And that's what we've done. And we really peaked right before the sale in March and April of 2021. We peaked with our best months ever. And I'm humbled to say
nice.
We did over $1 million a month in body sculpting those 2 months. And it's an incredible credit to the unbelievable team that we have, from our marketing team driving over 1,000 leads a month, our sales team making over 1,000 calls a month, our directors, our technicians, our entire staff grinding every day. We call them the Sperling rock stars. Every single one of them is, I would put them up against anyone in the industry, 1%ers all around.
Join Dr. Grant Stevens along with his fellow co-chairs Alyssa Lask and Brent Saunders at the Aesthetics Innovation Summit on April 20th in San Diego, California, where clinical key opinion leaders, industry executives, and active investors will unite to see exciting startups present novel technologies to address unmet needs in the aesthetics market. To see the list of speakers and to sign up, visit attendais.com today and use the discount code TOB exclusively for the Technology of Beauty podcast listeners to save $200. Join us on April 20th to shape the future of aesthetics.
Welcome back to the Technology of Beauty, where I have the opportunity to interview the movers and the shakers of the beauty business. And today is no exception. With us today is Dr. Shari Sperling and Ari Katz, who have both flown in today from New Jersey with their 3 beautiful children. They're married, 2 different last names, you're going to hear all about it. And first, welcome you guys. Thank you so much for getting on a plane and flying from New Jersey to be on the Technology of Beauty.
Thank you so much. We're so happy to be here.
Yes, we're happy that you're here, Dr. Shari. So let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. We want to get to know you. So where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? What's your story?
What's my story? So I'm a New Jersey girl,
okay.
Born and bred and still living there now. Went to Binghamton University in New York for college,
right.
And then went to New York College of Osteopathic Medicine for medical school. And from there, I'm actually double board certified in family practice. And then I did my dermatology residency. And now I am practicing as a dermatologist.
That's fantastic. And when did you go into practice?
So I graduated from residency 2011, and I worked in another practice for a few years, and then I started my own practice in the summer of 2016. So about 5 years ago.
In New Jersey?
In New Jersey, yes.
And at this point, how many locations do you have?
So it started out as 1 location in Florham Park, New Jersey, and now today we have 3 locations, all in New Jersey, and we have the Sperling Sprinter, which we'll tell you about, the mobile spa.
I love it.
Yes.
Okay, and when did you meet this knucklehead?
I met this guy during my residency training. We met, got married. We dated for 9 months. 6 months later, we got married. And now have 3 beautiful children.
I'll say you do. So,
Thank you.
Boy, did you get hit by a rainbow, huh?
I would say so. I mean, she reminds me every day nothing would be possible without her, so she's absolutely right, and you're absolutely right, too. I'm very, very lucky to have such an amazing woman by
And
my
I'm
side.
lucky to have him,
So
too.
where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Boston, and, kind of went to high school out there, then went to college in New York City, a place called Yeshiva University, which is a private Jewish college. And then from there, I went into sales and marketing and really built a career in the digital marketing space before I came over to help my wife with Sperling Dermatology.
Okay. And when did we first meet?
Oh, you got a story there, Dr. Stevens. So right when I got involved in the business, it was probably late 2017, early 2018. One of my contacts in the industry told me about AIS and said, man, Ari, you're going to love this. It's the business side of the industry. It's not so much on the clinical side. It's really the business. And it was in New York City. It was when ASAPS was in New York, and I came there. And you were this just mega celebrity, doctor. And I remember very vividly. So you did a battle of the toxins on stage. You did all this really fun stuff. And I brought Shari, actually, and we loved it. I was actually sitting right next to Dieter, is it Manson, the founder of Cool Sculpt. I was like, this is a celebrity row right here. And I remember you came off stage at one point, and I tried to hustle over to you and catch you, and everyone was coming to you, and I just said, Dr. Stevens, I'm Ari Katz. I'm like, I'm going to be the #1 cool sculpting provider in the country. And you're like, it's all about marketing, Ari. And you said it as you keep walking, it's all about marketing. It's all about marketing. And here we are, man. Here
Fantastic.
we are 4 years later, and I'm on the podcast, so it's full circle for me. I love it.
Okay, that's fantastic. So you got involved with your wife, and she's the medical side of it, the doctor side, and you're the marketer and the business side that way?
That's right.
And I'm sure you work as a team, right?
Yes. We work
so
together.
tell me what you did. I mean, what's it look like?
Sure. So, I mean, as Shari said, she started the practice really like a traditional dermatology practice, super passionate about medicine, helping people, and really just, I mean, you could tell them your vision when you started. What it was
so
for you.
I always had the vision and want to start my own practice. I grew up, my dad was is a psychologist and works out of my house. And I grew up always wanting to have my own practice. So in July of 2016, I opened up my practice. I had my third baby. I remember nursing as I was learning my electronic medical system, learning it, tired, pumping, all that. So I did it and opened up the office. I have a passion to treat patients. I do medical, cosmetic, some surgical, dermatology, lasers, and all the injectables. So, and then I did that for a few years, and then I'll tell Ari. Ari will tell the story about how we started with cool sculpting and opened up to body sculpting, and that's where things really expanded.
Okay.
Yeah. So
go for it.
So yeah, it was July of 2016. She started the practice. She actually, one of her first patients became her front desk person. One of those stories where you kind of build organically in a tiny little space. And I was actually at the gym. I was going to the gym at the time at a personal trainer, and I told him, my wife started a dermatology practice. He said, oh, that's so cool. He goes, have you heard of this thing called cold sculpting? I'm like, cold sculpting? What are you talking about? He goes, a woman I trained, she's a rep for this company called Cold Sculpting, and they're going to freeze my fat. They're going to do my abs and give me a six pack. I'm like, put me in touch. So we set up a call. I'm like, I'll learn about this, right? At that time, cool sculpting was still Zeltique. It was pre-Allergan, all that stuff. So the word wasn't fully out yet. I remember we had a call with the rep, and I think what jumped out to us on that call was just the fact that the treatment worked. It wasn't like this hocus pocus fat pill or this diet pill. It was a procedure that was non-invasive that actually had phenomenal results across millions of patients. And I remember getting pretty excited about the opportunity with cool sculpting. Of course, finding out how much it costs was like, it's $150,000 for a machine. I'm like, well, we just started this business. Should we take this leap? And we went back and forth for a while. And I think ultimately it was just about taking a little bit of a leap of faith and saying, hey, you have this traditional derm practice, which anyone who's ever started a derm practice knows. You list yourself with the insurance carriers, the phone starts ringing, especially when you're a young, beautiful woman like this. People want to get in because they're used to waiting months to get in with the dermatologist. Now they could get in days because she was brand new. So that side of it was taken care of. But we said the cool sculpting could be a cool thing to explore in terms of expanding the practice. And so we made the decision, even with a bunch of pushback and a bunch of It
was nerve-wracking. It was definitely a challenge to get over and to really put our faith into having this new device and offering new treatments. I said, I'm a dermatologist. How is this going to fit into the practice?
Was this the beginning of your aesthetics within the derm?
I was still doing injectables,
okay,
but this went into the body sculpting part.
Sure.
So it was a little nerve-wracking, but we did take that risk. Ultimately, we talked about it a lot, and we said, let's do it. I remember signing the papers for the contracts, and we were all nervous and shaky, and we said, let's just do it. We're going to go full force. And here we are. Oh. So it was a good decision.
Well, yeah, I think when you reference, we looked at it and we said, what does a dermatologist have to do with fat? And of course, the rep said to us, well, fat has skin on it, doesn't it? I was like, all right, I guess that makes sense. So we ended up purchasing our first cool sculpting machine in late 2016. It was around December time, and back then all the rage was these cool events where you basically marketed to the local community, said, come learn about cool sculpting. And we did that very organically, kind of on the phone. Maybe we put something up on our Instagram where we have like 50 followers. Like, it was very, very basic. And I remember, and this is really what turned the corner for us was that first cool event with zero marketing and zero effort. Like 7 or 8 people showed up. Shari did 3 or 4 consults, and we booked we booked probably 4 or 5 treatments for about $2,000 or $3,000 each. And I said, look, the machine was $150,000. We financed it for about $3,000 a month. So our thinking was, if you book 1 treatment a month at about $3,000, you pay for the whole thing. That was like basic bare minimum. And at that first cool event, there was so much interest in it. And again, without any marketing effort, I was like, well, we just made $10,000 in this one cool event. This is interesting. And from there, slowly started to dabble in the marketing side. And again, with my background in digital marketing, specifically for small businesses, I worked at a company called Yodel that was all about local online advertising. I started to take some of those best practices and apply them in our business. And this is all while I was working full-time in corporate America. I was a sales guy for a big company, very cushy job. So I was doing this on the side. And
then I went to, Cool Sculpting has a CSU, Cool Sculpting University, and I went there and I was blown away. I was so excited about the opportunity. I learned about it. I spoke to other people coming from different practices all over the country. Mm-hmm. And I remember that night after being in the class all day, I called Ari and I'm like, wow, this is so exciting. I was amazed at what the opportunity had, and to see the results that people are so happy. They feel better about themselves, and it really worked. So we came home, and I think Ari saw that I was so excited, and that just fueled him. I'm coming from a medical background. I don't have the knowledge of sales and marketing and all of that technology. I don't know all of that. We don't learn that in medical school and residency. We learn a little bit, not much, but about that part. So Ari came, and then you started coming on more.
She came home, I've never seen my wife get so excited about a financial opportunity, and kind of came home with this whole sales mindset of like, I guess at Cool Sculpting University, they had her do a worksheet of like, okay, if you have one machine and you do X number of cycles, X number of times per week, X number of times per month, and you like extrapolate this big number, like, holy crap, we could make like, I don't know, $40,000 a month doing this. And she got all excited. I don't know, it was probably like more like $4,000 a month at that time, but she got really excited about the opportunity. And that I was like, okay, now we got to run with this. If you're on board and I'm on board, let's figure out a way to continue to double down. And so I actually went back to my trainer at the gym. I said, Dan, you got this girlfriend, Danielle. She's got a great work ethic. She's got great salesmanship. Can I hire her to run some Cool Sculpting business for us? He said, sure. So of course I went to Shari and said, I want to hire someone from the gym to run our Cool Sculpting.
I was completely skeptical. I'm like, what are you doing? You're taking a trainer from the gym who has no medical background, no experience in any of this. But she came on and she like blew my mind, and she is amazing. She was great with patients. She understood everything about it. She learned it. She dove headfirst in, and today she is our head of clinical excellence with our practice with the body sculpting. And it just goes to show you put someone in the right seat, they really
now you're in New Jersey.
Yes.
Who can run these machines in New Jersey? Because I know every state has a different idea of who can and who can't. I'm just curious.
So we have 3 different offices, like I said, and a mobile spa. Uh-huh. So between myself, I have 2 physician assistants, and then I have a whole team of technicians that are trained in all the machines. Uh-huh. These are non-medical grade devices, so they could be used by non-physician providers. So they're the ones that are doing it for the most part. I started out doing all the consults and all the treatments and being really hands-on, and that's where I got all my experience and learned the ins and outs of the machines. Uh-huh. Once I felt comfortable, then I taught Danielle, she got comfortable, and then it's trickled down to teach everyone until they are trained.
Did you send any of them to Cool Sculpting University?
Yes, they've all been there. They all had that experience, and it's a great program, as you know.
It sure is.
And I think that, when I think back about the success we've had with Cool Sculpting, I think there was a few core ingredients that were necessary. And one of the main ones was that it didn't require a doctor to perform the treatment. So we weren't restricted to the volume based on hiring more doctors and taking up their time. That was one of the best parts about Cool Sculpting, was that they could be trained. You could train a technician. You could train someone kind of off the street in how to do this. It's not a complicated treatment or procedure by any means. And
once you learn it and you're comfortable
and you're accredited, the ability to kind of find people to do the treatment. And it was funny because Shari started doing the consults and the treatments, and slowly I started to wean her off to Danielle. And again, at that point, she's like, are you sure about this? And Danielle became very good at doing a consult, and then Danielle was doing the treatments, and we slowly started to build in this office in Florham Park to the point that we were, with very little effort in marketing, because at this point I was getting involved a little bit, putting some money into Google AdWords, about $2,000 a month, Facebook AdWords, a very little bit kind of on my own, and the results were pretty impressive for very little effort. And I remember at the time we were probably getting in the vicinity of 50 to 100 leads a month. And these were people finding us on Google or Facebook, seeing like up to $900 off Cool Sculpting. Let me get a coupon. And the leads would come in, name, email, phone number, and I would call them. And I was working my day job in corporate America, but I would hop in a conference room. Hey, it's Ari from Sperling Dermatology. I'd love to set you up the consult with my wife. Made it very like homey, family run. And I just started setting up consults with her and then eventually to Danielle. And they would book treatments. And I was like, I started to see this funnel. And I was like, this is interesting. Like, this is very little effort. I'm working full-time somewhere else, putting very little money at this, and we're starting to make 20, 30, 40.
And then on the side, that's when I could focus on my dermatology practice with seeing my medical patients.
Sure.
And then also building up my cosmetic with my injectables, doing fillers and Botox, lasers. And that's where I spend more of my focus, overseeing the other side as well. But I had other people doing it.
Yeah.
And what do you think the key marketing takeaway that you have? What do you think was the most important thing you learned in that early stage? I'm sure it's changed a little bit.
So in that early stage, this was throughout the year 2017, before I came on full-time, we consistently were at about $2,000 a month in marketing, which some people listening might say, that's a huge number. And some other people might say, that's a tiny number. For us, $2,000 was our learning budget.
And again, that was like a ton for me. I was like, oh my God, you're putting that money into it? Like, that's crazy. Yeah.
And you had one machine at that point.
Yes.
We bought a second machine in mid 2017 because we realized, hey, with Advantage, if you had two machines, you could treat two places at once, and whatever, dual sculpting. I know they don't like it when we say that, but really what we learned at that point was we started to understand what the market reacted to, what was driving the demand for cool sculpting. And I'm sure, obviously, you know this. Cool Sculpting was soon after we bought into their system, they were acquired by Allergan, which came out of nowhere from us. You may have known about it long before, but that was a huge turning point as well, because then you had this company that prior to the Allergan acquisition was this private company with limited marketing budget. Now all of a sudden they went to Allergan, and they were on TV and they were on the radio and they were everywhere. And one other thing was, we got a lot of pushback when we thought about going with them originally because there were so many cool sculpting providers around us already. One of the top providers in New Jersey was actually up the street from us, same street address, like a different number. And, for us, the marketing we were doing is what we felt differentiated us. And what we learned was what the market reacted to. What language did we need to use in an ad copy? What type of imagery did we want on a landing page? And again, this was me building it mostly from scratch. What type of pictures? What type of positioning? So in those first couple of years, we really spent the time to understand what worked in our market. And for us, it was, again, with a minimal budget on Google, understanding what we needed to put in the ad copies to get people's attention, to get a click, right? And then what needed to be on the landing page to get them to actually fill out the form. Believe it or not, in the industry, there's about a 10% average conversion rate from a click to someone filling out the form, which means if 100 people click on your Google link, which of course you're paying for it because it's pay-per-click, only 10 of those 100 actually fill out a form, and that's considered good. That to me is one of the craziest things ever, that Google's got us to believe that it's okay that 90 people will come there and not fill out. Like, what's the disconnect? But anyways, we learned in those first 2 years what did we need to do to get people's attention. And I would say that was the turning point, because over the course of 2017, we got our second cool sculpting machine. We continued to see our revenues grow. They grew from $20,000 a month to 30 to 40 to 50, and we're like, this continued to be really interesting. And it was around that point in late 2017, about a year after getting the first device, that I started the wheels started turning in my head, saying, man, if I left corporate America and came to do this full time, this could be really interesting. There's a lot of opportunity here that if I don't take this risk, we'll never know what could have happened.
Mm-hmm. So you bought your second machine.
And
you ended up with many more than that. So
yes,
tell me how you got there.
So with our second machine, this was late 2017. In late 2017, we very quickly became the #1 cool sculpting provider in New Jersey, which again, we talked about, there were a lot of competitors around us, and they're all phenomenal doctors, great businesses. We don't say one negative thing about them, but we market it in a very different way than them, I think. I think a lot of the marketing in medicine, as usual, and Shari can speak to this, it's more traditional, it's a little less edgy. They utilize the radio, they utilize TV, they utilize billboards. We were utilizing the internet, which we felt gave us such an advantage in the space. And again, we were recognized very quickly as the #1 provider in New Jersey. And I think at that point, I went back to Danielle, who was my first hire. I said, hey, forget the gym. I need you to leave. I need you here full time. That was in the summer of 2017. Yes. And by the end of 2017, we had 2 machines. I said, I remember I came to Shari and I said, I think I should leave my job. I mean, I had a very nice 6-figure salary, benefits, cushy, easy sales job, traveling around the country. But I said, I think I should leave, and I think I should come work for you and with Sperling Dermatology full time. And you could tell them what your original reaction was.
I'm sure. Mama Bear.
Yeah, so it was a conversation, to say the least. You know, it was just like buying the first cool sculpting machine. This was a big change. You know, how are we going to work together? How are we going to stay in our own lanes? Can we afford this? Can we do this? Can we make it work? And we, after a long conversation, we said, let's try it. Let's give it a go and see how it works. And there were some learning curves along the way, but I think we learned to, you know, do what we're good at. And, you know, I stayed with my medical and my injectables and lasers and really took off with that while overseeing the cool sculpting, body sculpting part on the clinical side, and even patients. I mean, my staff, they have my cell phone. They call me all the time. I'm always available. I'm always in and out with patients there too. But we said that Ari was going to come on and really blow it up and really build the business even more. And like Ari said, on our street alone in New Jersey, there are 5 to 6 other practices that have cool sculpting machines within a mile. And it just shows with the right marketing and the right sales. And I also think, you know, having a board certified dermatologist at the basis of the practice, and me meeting the patients and knowing my staff, I mean, my practice and my office, it really is like my 4th child, and they all know that. And it's really, we're like a family, and it's really a warm, welcoming team. We have like the most amazing people that work with us. And I really want them to feel that, my staff, and then they push it onto all the patients and see. So I think that all brings it together, that the patients feel comfortable and come in.
Yeah. And I think Shari nailed it when she said that, you know, at first it was really about staying in our lanes, right? Working together, husband. I remember I approached a few people in the community, like the elder statesmen, and like, I don't know, husband and wife going into business doesn't usually end well. And I remember I went to my dad about it, said, Pops, I want to leave, you know, my job and go. He was like, Ari, are you sure you want to be known as Shari's husband? Because by the way, everyone who asks me what I do now, like, Ari, oh, hey, nice to meet you. What do you do? I'm like, well, my wife's a board certified dermatologist, and together we run a medical practice. But my dad said to me, you really want to build her brand? And nothing against, he loves Shari, but you know, you're going to totally build Sperling. And, you know, I said, Dad, great, fine with me. I don't have an ego about this. I just saw a killer opportunity. And so we made the decision for me to come on board full time in January of 18. Like Shari said, I think the original challenge in working together was staying in our lanes, knowing that she stays in the medical lane, I stay in the business lane. And I remember, and obviously you remember, that for the first year, we definitely butted heads a lot. And I think, and I really believe, I had to earn her trust on the marketing side. Because again, spending $2,000 a month, right, was enough. When I started Dr. Stevens in January of 18, guess where I popped that $2,000 a month budget to on day one?
How much?
$30,000 a month. And you can imagine that was not an easy conversation. But I said, we've spent the last year learning what works. Now it's time to prove it. And I cranked that budget up to $30,000 a month, and we've been at $30,000 every month since. And immediately, our whole business blew up from the fact that we were now dominating the internet space with marketing, flooding the space, becoming, quote unquote, the celebrity dermatologist in the area, became more of a lifestyle brand. We partnered with influencers. We partnered with micro-influencers. We partnered with TV celebrities, and we quickly started to take the Sperling brand that was started as this very traditional, great medical practice and take it into the lifestyle category. And in a lot of ways, everyone loves Shari. Everyone who knows her loves her. But if you did a focus group and say, what do you know Sperling Dermatology for? It's like cool sculpting, it's like injectables, it's aesthetics. And we branded ourselves for that space. And across 2018, I started again doubling down on the business. I looked immediately to open our second location. I said, let's open a cool sculpting standalone studio in a place called Montclair, New Jersey, which is a great market and 10 minutes from our house. I said, that would be awesome. We did that. I found the most unbelievable salesperson, I think, in the whole industry. Her name is Katz. She's incredible. We met her in a Starbucks. She was the first person we interviewed for it, and we're like, I don't know how we could go with anyone else. She was a top sales rep at Bosley, the hair rejuvenation place, and we just said, and she lived like nearby, and we said, she'll kill it. She came in before Montclair was even open. It was still under construction. She was closing cool sculpting treatments with like the construction guys, the PSE&G energy guys, and from there, she just took the whole business and raised the bar for us because, and when you ask Kat what made her successful, it was not being afraid to talk about money, right? Not being afraid to tell someone who needed 8 cycles that you need 8 cycles and it's going to be $4,800. And B, not being afraid to tell someone, hey, you're not going to get what you want with 2 cycles on your abs. You're going to need 2 rounds of 6 cycles each. And she took our average cool sculpting ticket from the $2,000 level to closer to the $4,000 or $5,000 level. And we at first were very concerned, is she overselling? Is she overprescribing? Are we going to get a bunch of, 1-star reviews from people who, and guess what? None of that happened. All these people were that much happier. And you referenced earlier treatment to transformation. Yeah. I think your wife came out with that slogan. That happened around the same time that Kat was starting to sell more treatments in the right way. And it changed everything for us because it allowed us to be very honest with the patient, say, hey, a lot of people wanted to limp into, let me try it with 2 cycles. And that's like kind of getting half LASIK, right? It's like, you're not going to get the results you want, or let me get half my teeth whitened, right? If you want to fix this area of your stomach, we need to treat the abs, the flanks, all these different areas. And when treatment to transformation came out, it changed everything because all of a sudden we weren't afraid to sell people on two treatments, right? Or the right number of cycles. And so over the course of 2018, we continued to just make that investment, start to grow the team. At that point, we probably had 10 or 15 employees across both offices. By the end of 2018, around Memorial Day, actually, we were recognized as the #1 cool sculpting provider in the country. We hit that kind of mark. I remember they called us and said, yeah, we looked at the numbers. You guys have done more treatments it was that month, I think, or year to date, than anyone else. And it was like, wow, this is really starting to work. So around that time, we got in touch with a few. We said, now we're going to continue to double down. Let's get other treatment categories in here. So we looked into M-Sculpt. We made a decision, even though that was a hard decision, to take on M-Sculpt, which is the muscle toning treatment. And by the end of 2018, we now had 4 cool sculpting machines in Montclair, 2 in Florham Park, and we had 1 M-Sculpt machine as well, in Montclair. So we were immediately starting to spread our wings a little bit and see how much further we could take this thing.
And when did you start the mobile?
Oh, that's a whole story.
You're getting very ahead of me now. Let me take you to the mobile.
Okay.
Because we're only at the end of 2018. At that point, we now were up to probably, crazy to say it, but in the vicinity of $200,000 to $300,000 a month in cool sculpting. And again, at that point, it was certified that this was a good move. We then looked in early 2019 at opening our 3rd location in a place called Red Bank, which is a great, phenomenal area for aesthetics in general.
Okay.
And we got that. We actually started in Neptune, New Jersey. We opened up a cool sculpting studio there. And again, this is one of the mistakes. I talk about this on stage sometimes. This is one of the mistakes we made was we thought you could open a cool sculpting studio in a Rework space. We said it'd be great. You'll have a few rooms. You have it like you can open it in a day. And what we didn't realize was people don't want to spend $5,000 on a medical treatment in a Rework.
Back to Danielle. Danielle moved down the shore for us to open up that Neptune store location for us. And then soon after, we moved the location to Red Bank because we realized that Red Bank was the better location.
We figured if we could make it work in Rework, we could bang out, 20, 30 locations quickly because it's so easy.
So what was the problem with Rework? Is it the clientele that uses Rework?
It was really the fact that when people would walk through the door, they got a more of a business office vibe, and we were trying to sell them a $3,000 cosmetic, really high-end cosmetic spa experience, and it just didn't match. And so we just saw like the show rate was good on the consults, but the close rate was lower than all the other offices. And when they did buy, they limped in with 2 cycles instead of what they really needed. And so we very quickly just said, we gotta, cut our losses here. We moved the spa to the best street in all of Red Bank, called Broad Street, across the street from Tiffany's and Restoration Hardware, like great location. We actually got our certificate of occupancy for Red Bank March 15th of 2020. So we had waited months doing construction. Wow. And
yes. And then
3 days later,
COVID hit.
How big is that space you're talking about?
So that space is probably, people are surprised to hear this, it's probably only about 1,500 square feet, but we hired an unbelievable PA out there named Christina. She is a world-class rock star. She had come from plastics doing injectables, and she was at a practice where she couldn't really do the marketing side of it. She was very energetic. She had great personality, wanted to be on Instagram, but couldn't really do it. And we gave her that. We actually met her at CSU.
That's exactly what I was going to say, that Ari met her at CSU.
Okay.
She was with another practice at the time, and that's when they met.
I was one of the keynote speakers at the MBA class in CSU, and I remember she has this whole story where she saw my laptop and said, Sperling, oh, that's Ari from Sperling, he's crushing all of us, because she was at a practice in New Jersey. She approached me and tried to, facilitate something, and I didn't really take much notice, but then a few weeks later, I hit her up on Instagram, and I was like, this actually could be interesting, and one thing led to another. We got her in. Her name's Christina. Absolutely magnificent. I call her the Botox bus queen now. But throughout the process of COVID, at that point, right, coming into COVID, we were on a tear as a business. At that point, 3 locations, 9 cool sculpting machines, 2 M-Sculpt. We had brought on M-Tone, which was a cellulite. We had great injectable business. Business was booming. And I remember leaving the Red Bank office the day before the shutdown. I called my brother, Eitan, who runs my marketing, and I said, at that point, we knew we were going to have to shut down. The pandemic, the word was out. I said,
for 2 weeks only, we thought.
I said, it's such a
right? We
shame.
thought 2 weeks at the time.
Really?
Yeah. Yes, that's what everyone said. 2 weeks, 2 weeks. We said, okay.
I said, it's
and
such a shame.
That ended up being a little longer than that.
We're going to have to shut down because business is booming and we're starting to crank, and what a shame, we're going to have to pump the brakes. And we did. We shut down for 90 days, 3 months. The probably
after just hiring Christina, our PA there.
Right.
Yep.
We put everything.
Did you close the doors?
We
did.
We stayed open for a few weeks. Shari started doing some
I did some
telemedicine.
virtual. I did telemedicine for that time.
That was a great pivot. But during those 90 days, at that point, we had about 35 people working across the practices. One of the biggest decisions we made was to open up a remote sales team that handled the leads. And just to go back to that, at that point, we were generating about 1,000 leads a month. So we started with 50 leads a month, and we upped our budget. Now we were generating 1,000 a month, which meant you had to make at least 1,000 phone calls a month, if not more, to follow up with these people, bring them in. At that point, the 1,000 leads was turning into 400 consults, turning into 300 treatments. And we had to shut that all down. The entire operation needed to be shut down. We had to learn what the word, furlough, what that meant. Yep. We had to learn the unemployment rules. I had phenomenal, my operations head, Lee, was instrumental that time. I remember the Monday that we shut down, I had an Apple Watch on. I looked at it, and I had to make phone calls to 35 different people to tell them that they were going to have to go on unemployment. And it was one of the hardest days of my entire life, calling every single member of our team who worked like a dog, unbelievable contributors, passionate about our business, treats it like it's their own, and to say, we can't continue to pay you because we don't know when the money's going to come in, and it's too risky, and we're going to need to have you go on unemployment. And almost every single one of them, Dr. Stevens said to me, Ari, I get it. Thank you for the call. Thank you for the honesty. I don't blame you. I said, guys, here's what I said. I remember I said, it's not an Ari issue. It's not a Shari issue. It's not a Sperling issue. It's not a New Jersey issue. It's not a America issue. This is a world issue right now. And I got to be honest with you, it's too risky. And so every single employee went on furlough and unemployment. I remember looking at my Apple Watch at the end of that day, just in my own house without leaving. I walked over 10 miles because I was pacing the whole day on the phone trying to deal with these very challenging conversations. And it was that shutdown that led us to think up the mobile spa, which came about really as a reaction to COVID and saying, hey, what happens if people are not comfortable coming back to our stores? What are we going to do? We have all these machines. We have payroll. We have overhead. At that point, Dr. Stevens, I had almost $2 million in debt on these machines because we financed every single one of them and hundreds of thousands of dollars each. And we were sitting on a Friday night.
So, but before that,
Yeah.
one day I said, oh, let's just go get one of the machines and bring them to the house
They've been
and just
sitting
do
collecting
it.
dust anyway.
And let's use some of the machines while we're here. So one thing led to another, and then we were sitting on a Friday night.
You were sitting on a Friday night. I joked that we had a glass of wine and then another glass and then another glass and another glass.
That's
And we
how he
started
says the
talking
story.
about what are we going to do if no one comes back and how could we approach that? And again, Shari brought up maybe we bring the machines to the house. Maybe we do it in the garage where we could keep it open and get airflow. And I was like, what happens if we kind of introduce a mobile spa and we actually bring the machines onto a truck, bring them to people's driveway, bring them to popular destinations, keep the door open for airflow. And like one thing led to another. And that Friday night, we both were like, either we're really drunk and this is the worst idea ever, or it might be the best idea ever. And that Sunday, 2 days later, I went online. I found like a used, party bus limo place that you can buy. And this was in the midst of COVID. This was in May. And I remember by Sunday afternoon, I had contacted someone. It was actually in Beverly Hills. There was a party bus listed for sale, Mercedes-Benz Sprinter, 20-foot long, 2 big screen 50-inch TVs, huge 6-foot ceiling, gorgeous. Some guy out here had one and was looking to get rid of it for a fraction of what it cost, $150,000 truck that he was looking to offshoot for like a lot less than that. And one thing led to another, and we started doing the specs. Could we fit the machines on? Could we power them? How would this work? Can we legally do this? And we checked all the boxes.
And a few weeks later, we met the driver on the Sprinter in like an abandoned parking lot
In New
in the
Jersey.
middle of the
Drove
night
across
as he
country.
drove
Drove it across
across country with our kids. They were super excited getting on this new Sprinter. And we took it home. It was a black Sprinter. And we took it home. We got it wrapped with our Sperling Dermatology logo. And we put the machine, we took out some seats to stage it appropriately, and it's been running.
It was an unbelievable introduction. We videoed the whole thing. We put it on Instagram, and that was one of the best examples of utilizing Instagram because leading up to it, we teased it. We got a big announcement, and all of a sudden we are growing at that point based on the micro influencers and the people who are driving views to our page. We're growing a 15,000 plus audience, followings, which probably for you is not all that much, but for us it was a big deal.
That's a big deal.
And we started teasing this big announcement. And I remember when we went Instagram Live to announce it, we had a lot of people. The response was unbelievable. Oh my God, I love this. Come to my house. I want Botox at my house. I want cool sculpting at my house.
I mean, all these women and men even were so excited. They haven't had Botox in months because of COVID. So they got a bunch of friends together. We would bring the Sprinter to their driveway one at a time. It was very COVID safe. The doors are open. One at a time would come on. And then we brought some of the devices on, and we, had between hydrofacial, and we did cool sculpting for a little. That was, the M sculpt. We did all the machines on there and bring it to people's houses where they felt comfortable, where we felt comfortable in a COVID safe fashion.
Yeah, I mean, right from the get-go, the business took off, and the demand and the response was any better than we could have ever asked for. I think within weeks of before we even had it, just introducing it, we were booked out for like a month with people wanting, to book treatments, hydrofacials and Botox and treatments.
Fillers.
Then we actually pivoted to an alternative strategy that actually is very interesting, and we started partnering with hotels. And we actually got invited out to the Hamptons to a boutique hotel out there called Capri in Southampton the weekend that the Chainsmokers were playing. It ended up being a whole controversial event, but we were out there.
We were there before the week. Yeah,
we were there for the weekend.
That happened, yes.
It was a big weekend, and we came out there and we brought the Sprinter, and all these women who are out in the Hamptons who had not had Botox in months because they were afraid to go out, and they were what they call social distancing in the Hamptons. They lined up. For the Sprinter.
We parked the Sprinter in the parking lot in front of the hotel.
Right.
And with all of our Instagram and social media, our days were packed. Our kids are at the pool, and I'm the physician going back and forth and meeting patients on the Sprinter to do Botox, injectables. Mm-hmm. We had some of our devices as well. And they were loving it. And then from there, we've continued to go back. A lot of these women or men were coming from the city or other places that wanted to continue. And then we made these connections.
And you had exam chairs in the Sprinter?
Yes.
and you could do the cool sculpting or the injectables that she chose to do. That's fantastic.
Yeah. It's the Hamptons was the best, Dr. Stevens, because literally the women walk on, they hand you the credit card, they say, I don't even, just charge me whatever you want, give me everything. So it was an amazing experience. And one of the things we learned about running a mobile business, because at that point we still had the 3 brick and mortar, and we can talk about how they came back post-pandemic, but the mobile sprinter in particular, we were learning a brand new business, and we learned what services work better on there. So you asked about cool sculpting. Cool sculpting didn't work great on a sprinter. It got too hot, the machines are too big, not enough space. Injectables work great. The concept of Botox parties at people's house. We introduced a host program where women and men would actually invite 10 or 15 of their girlfriends to their home. We'd show up with the sprinter and we'd spend all day there, shooting them up with Botox and filler. And so the whole business really evolved into this incredible 4th location, traveling billboard. And at the same time as that, we were so blessed that the pandemic created this pent-up demand. I'm sure you felt it in your business here as well. The pent-up demand for our services, specifically cool sculpting, to be honest, because remember the quarantine 15, people weren't going to gyms, they weren't working out, they were eating a lot, they were sitting at home, they had Zoom Face. That was the time we also brought in the 2 Evoke machines, which are hands-free facial skin tightening. It was all in response to the fact that people were not liking the way they looked. And they couldn't even go to the gyms because the gyms were closed. So it played right into our hands. It was like cool sculpting for fat, M-Sculpt for muscle, Evoke for your face, and it just one thing led to another, and the business exploded.
And our Red Bank 3rd location was reopened, and that expanded as well.
Yeah, the business started booming. And
were there any medical board issues with the mobile Botox and injectables?
The only restriction we had on it was no medical procedures, no laser, no using a scalpel. It was really like you can do injectables on it, you can do non-medical grade devices on it. We checked with many lawyers to confirm everything, and it was pretty straightforward, to be honest.
So that's, just to be clear, it's either myself or my physician assistant, Christina, who's doing all the treatments.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And there's no issues about it being mobile or...
No, because as long as you're in the state of New Jersey or New York, I'm licensed in New York and New Jersey as well. So as long as I have my medical license there.
Yeah, it was all about just having the license in the state that you were going to practice it in.
And how about your malpractice carrier? Did they...
So we had to
get with them. We checked with everything.
We had to get a lot more coverage for the sprinter, coverage for the mobile side of it. It was, and again, they were looking at us like we were crazy. Remember that we had made the decision to buy the sprinter when we were actually at a point both on unemployment. I mean, the whole business was shut down, no income coming in, no idea what was coming. At that point, no one knew. And we made the decision to go take on more debt and take a huge risk. And when I look back on it now, it's one of the proudest moments for me on the journey is that we had the guts to do that. And they say no guts, no glory, take a risk. This was a huge risk, and it totally ended up working out. And we feel so blessed that it worked out so well. And from there, the rest of the business also started to boom. Again, credit to the entire team, not me. Almost forget Shari, forget us. It was the team around us that treated this business like it was their family. My brother Eitan running the marketing, my head's in all the different offices cranking, and we started to just fly. And prior to COVID, we had some discussions about M&A. We had some discussions about what's the long-term plan for this business. We knew we had grown it to a great level, but we also knew that at a certain point we'd hit our threshold of risk and we would need a big partner to help us take it to the next level. So pre-COVID, we started having some discussions with a broker group called Physicians Growth Partners, Providers, something like that. PGP, Ezra Simons is the president of that group. And we had this conversation pre-COVID that kind of fizzled out during COVID, of course. And he said, let's talk again. We'll see what happens. He said, when you reopen June, maybe you'll do 20% of what you did, and we'll roll back up. And little did we know we would shoot out of a cannon in June.
But it's also, I'm young. I'm not 78 years old. So it was very different for me. I just started my practice 5 years ago. This is like so new for me. So, I planned, God willing, to practice for a long time. Mm-hmm. And when this whole conversation came about, it was, I really had to think about it. But to get where we wanted to go, where we wanted to expand and build and keep getting larger, we needed that help.
And I think what Shari's talking about is a really interesting topic because that was another example. Like when we first started, we'd butt heads, and then she finally trusted me because it all worked out, so to speak, and we were making money and it was all good. Then I'm telling her, let's sell this. And she's like, what are you, crazy? Like, I just started, this is my baby. It's like, I'm gonna let my 3-year-old walk down the aisle and move out of the house. Like, and it was really tough because again, and you can speak to this in more detail, as a doctor, you are almost, it's ingrained in you, and you could look at the Facebook boards. Private equity is bad. Selling out is bad. They ruin your brand. They ruin your business. They take it over. Don't do it. So for her, she's like, I would never sell out. It's terrible. And you can kind of speak to maybe that sentiment.
Yeah, I mean, I opened my practice because I want the autonomy. I want to be able to make my own decisions, run my practice the way I run it. I have 3 kids at home. I need to be there for them as well. But most importantly, I want to be able to do what I want. And you hear these horror stories with PE-backed offices. They come in, they transform the entire office, they take over. You hear horror stories. Mm-hmm. So that's what I was afraid of. And I did not want that.
No.
So
that's understandable.
Yes.
So you got over that.
I got over that when we met the right people.
Uh-huh.
So we had to find the right partners for us to go forward.
And have you done that now with your practice?
Yes.
Yeah, so we got back in touch post-COVID, and again, the business just took off, and we said, this is a good time to start to go to market. We were peaking, numbers were huge. We said, we're going to get a great valuation now because we're booming. And we had this COVID adjustment strategy on the financials to recognize there were 3 months off, so we didn't get hit for it. And we spent a few months putting together a marketing plan. We positioned ourselves. For the first time ever, PGP went out with more of like I think they called it a skin platform, not a dermatology practice, not a medical practice, but we positioned ourselves as like almost a technology platform like Silicon Valley. And I did this whole sizzle video to all the potential buyers, and I looked right in the camera. I go, we're not a dermatology practice. We're a Silicon Valley company disguised as a dermatology practice. And that was the angle we took. And by December of 20, we went to market with this whole marketing brochure of who we were. We got about 200 buyers who saw the materials. Out of the 200, Ezra put us in front of 40 of them signed NDAs and said, we want to learn more. Of the 40 that signed NDAs, about 10 of them said, we want to get on the phone with Ari. We want to hear the pitch. We want to meet the practice. And in March of 2021, we said, that's a due date. We want bids. We want an LOIs from people who are interested. And all 10 people I spoke with, 9 of them were private equity. 1 of them was a strategic, which ended up being the one we go with, not to give away the secret at the end, but 9 of them were private equity, and all 10 that I spoke to came back with offers. And at that point, we had a decision to make because the question was not so much who could give us the best dollar amount, because again, like Shari said, we're 40 years old. We're not looking to retire. We're not looking to transition out. So we wanted to go with people who we felt we could ride for the next 20 years with and double down on the business and grow it more and partner with us. And every single person who submitted bids, great people. There was not one who we were like disregarded. All of them were great. And if they're listening, thank you for those generous offers. But in the end, we did decide to go with the strategic. And a lot of that was rooted in some of the stuff that Shari knew about private equity, which was that it was a little bit more cutthroat and maybe not the right environment for us. And the notion that they pitch there a lot is second bite of the apple. So they say, you will give you what we give you now, then you grow it for 5 years and you blow it up and you open 30 locations, then you're going to get this. We're like, well, I don't know that. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. So what can we do today? And that's where the strategic came in with an unbelievable offer. Their name is Forefront Dermatology. To be honest, we hadn't heard of them before. They're based out of Wisconsin, but they are the largest medical dermatology network in the country, and they are backed by one of the largest private equity firms in the world called Omers out of Canada, and they came in with just a phenomenal offer that wasn't even so much about the numbers as much as it was about the strategy, the vision, the partnership, and we ended up signing.
And all dermatologists. And that was very important to me. It was a dermatology-owned practice, and they know what my practice is like. They have experience with over 150 other locations, all in the Midwest. I mean, they're growing all over the country now, and we really found a great match with them. And June of 2021 is when we officially became part of Forefront Dermatology. So now it's Sperling Dermatology, a Forefront Dermatology practice.
And how many practices are in Forefront?
Over 150 locations all
And
over.
they actually, so they were really deep rooted in the medical side of the space, but with the acquisition of us, they actually acquired Dr. Mary Lupo, who I know you know. They started to bridge into aesthetics. And they actually recently announced a few weeks ago, they bought Dr. Sandra Lee, the pimple popper. They brought her on board.
Pimple Popper, yes.
So
They're
now
growing. They're continuing to grow.
they're investing on the aesthetic side, and it's a great strategy for them. It's very exciting, but to their credit, they really saw the vision of what we could bring to the table as more than just a medical practice or a derm practice. They saw the strategy and the sales and marketing platform that we had built that they could replicate for not only their other offices, but for other services, for future locations. And that's what we've done. And we really peaked right before the sale in March and April of 2021. We peaked with our best months ever. And I'm humbled to say
nice.
We did over $1 million a month in body sculpting those 2 months. And it's an incredible credit to the unbelievable team that we have, from our marketing team driving over 1,000 leads a month, our sales team making over 1,000 calls a month, our directors, our technicians, our entire staff grinding every day. We call them the Sperling rock stars. Every single one of them is, I would put them up against anyone in the industry, 1%ers all around. And the best part is we treat them like family, so much so that one of the proudest things I can ever tell you is that since COVID, when there was the great resignation, everyone left their jobs, everyone left for unemployment, knock on wood, we haven't lost one employee. They've all stayed through, and that's because they love the environment we've created. We treat them with such respect, professionalism, and we appreciate them. We don't nickel and dime them. And I think it's a great lesson for others in the industry to say, if someone asks for $20 an hour, it doesn't mean you need to give them 20, give them 22. Like, would the $2 an hour kill you when if you give them the 20, 6 months later, someone offers them 21 and you lost them for $1 and now you're really far behind? Be a little bit more generous. And that was a big sales part of this that Shari wasn't all that comfortable with as a doctor. It was always about how can we save money? And I was like, how can we spend money? Because the more we spend, the more we're going to make. And that was another area where we kind of found this common ground, and it served us very well.
Well, you guys have been very successful, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for you. Many more stores, I'm sure, many more outlets, and your practice is unbelievable. You've grown it by leaps and bounds, and to do $1 million in body contouring a month is unbelievable. So congratulations to you. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know both of you. And I hope you have a wonderful time this weekend here in the LA area with your 3 beautiful children. I hope you come out to see us in San Diego at the Aesthetic Society meeting. Absolutely. We met that time, the first time, at the Aesthetics Innovation Summit, AIS. And hopefully you'll come out to the one this year too.
I love the fact that it came full circle.
Yes, same here.
We've looked up to you, and we look up to other doctors like you who have taken the internet seriously, taken marketing seriously. We work with a company called Influx, who you introduced us to, who handles our website, a lot of digital marketing for us. We have a great partner, Merkava. And by leveraging the internet, we've absolutely transformed our business. And the number one message I want to leave people with is, I'm nothing special, right? I really have no business sitting in this seat today. How did Sperling Dermatology come out of nowhere to become the number 1 body sculpting center in the country? How did we do it? We did it with a great team around us, a great doctor, a great business strategy. We leveraged marketing. We leveraged available technologies. We weren't afraid to push the limits a little bit. And anyone who's listening to this podcast, they can do that too. It's not impossible. And when I look at the future of this industry, I do know that a lot of people today who are wondering, should I start the practice with my wife? Should I buy a cool sculpt? Should I buy a mobile spa? They're going to do it. Some of them are going to, some of them are not. The ones who don't, you'll never hear from them again. The ones that do, you'll be sitting with them a few years from now, and hopefully they'll be telling you an amazing story.
Fantastic.
Take the leap of faith. Yes.
Okay. Well, again, thank you very much for joining us. I look forward to seeing you soon. And thank you all very much for joining us on another episode of The Technology of Beauty, where we get to interview the movers and shakers of the beauty business. And as you've just heard, today was no exception. Number 1 body contouring practice in the world. Thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you
so much, Dr. Stevens.
Be good. Everyone, stay safe.